everyone, it's Amanda, and this is our live video, our Tuesday at 2 for this week. And I'm going to share something with you that I hope will help you to gain a little bit of confidence with your art skills. So I just sent out an email yesterday, and I just asked those of you who have subscribed to my email list, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to finding your own art style? And confidence and self-criticism seem to be the number one problem that most of you are telling me that you're having. So I wanted to give you a little something that you can use that will help you to just practice, gain some skills with shape and line and form, and it's pretty relaxing and fun to do at the same time. So I've got some stuff out here on my table. I'm going to try to pull my camera down this way so you can see a little better. And this is an exercise that you can do with any subject that you really want to learn how to paint or draw a little better. So I don't want you to, first of all, I don't want you to think that what I'm about to do is the same as copying someone else. It is copying, but I'm going to show you what to do to help yourself, just to get an idea of how to draw something. Because drawing, you don't really have to know how to draw, because I'm not good with details in drawing, but you do need to know how the shape of certain things, what kinds of shapes you need to put together to make it look like a flower, for example. And so one thing that you can do, it's a fun little exercise. You can do this on an iPad. You can do it using paper. Either one is tracing things. So you can do this with books. You can use magazines. Any subject that you are interested in learning how to draw better or paint better, trace examples of it. So I'm going to show you here. I've got a book. It's got lots of flowers in it, photographs of flowers. And so I've got it opened up to this delphinium. I'm going to get a piece of tracing paper and put it on top of the picture, and we're going to just trace it. And what it's going to do, I'm not telling you, that's two pieces, hang on. I'm not telling you to trace this and then transfer it to a canvas and paint it or whatever. You don't have to do that. But what this is going to do is you put it down and just start going along the edges, and it is putting this information into your brain as you trace it, that this is the shape of these flowers. And when you do this, and you do it more than one time, you're going to start getting the gist of how it works, of how the lines should flow, and how you can create something after you do this, because it's like it's downloading some information into your brain, if you want to think about it like a computer. And when you trace around the edges of these lines, if you've ever done like blind contours, then that's another way you can do this is, for example, like if you have an artificial flower and you're just looking at it, and you use really loose strokes and take your eyes and go around the edge of each petal, and then make your hand do the same thing on paper without looking at the paper. That's another thing you could do. But this, oops, I moved it over. This right here, just tracing around the edges of these flowers, It's going to give me a loose and not really detailed outline, but it gives me an idea of where all these lines need to be, and it will help me go back and paint something like this in the future. So see, here's my traced version of this. And you can do this with anything. If you want to use something like a magazine and trace faces, it will help you to see. You've got to really think about what you're doing at the same time. It's going to help you to see how far apart are the eyes. What lines do I need to make to create a nose? Where are the really dark areas? Because you can scratch that in there while you're tracing. You can also use things like field guides for flowers. Here's one for birds. There are pictures of birds that you can trace, and it will help you to position things in different ways. Here's something, a nature study book that we had when I was homeschooling the kids. Lots of different birds in there. Anything that you want to learn how to paint, you're going to have to learn how to draw it, essentially. The better you get at drawing, the better you're going to get at painting. But you don't have to be able to draw something that is highly detailed and perfect. And tracing it will give you the idea of where all those lines need to be, where something begins and ends, how big something is, what, how much space is there between this part and that part. The curvature of like a little bird's head, getting that right. Because I know that this is one thing that frustrates me when I'm trying to do something new, is getting the shape right. Because if you don't get the shape right, then it's not going to look like the thing that you're trying to create. And let me see. I'm going to try to find a good example of a bird. I'm doing these birds because we are painting birds in my creative community this week. And I had all this stuff out on my table that I'm using for references. Okay, so for example, this bird's head, the beak, I don't know if you can see that, but the beak is really straight, and then there's a big curve up here on the top of that head. So if you're tracing that, then you're gonna recognize that curvature. But then there's another bird in here, the wren, and it doesn't have so much curvature at the top of the head. Can you see that? So depending on what kind of bird you want to paint, you're going to have to get that part right to make it look like that kind of bird. And the same goes for anything that you want to paint. So that curvature, the top of the head on the bird, is like the outline of where your paint's going to go. So you're going to have to get it. You're going to have to get it right in order for it to look like whatever it is that you're trying to paint. Is it a bluebird or is it a wren? And the way that you practice that is by doing it. And tracing, using tracing paper. You could use tissue paper if you don't have tracing paper. If you have an iPad, you can take a picture of something using your iPad and then take your Apple pen or Apple pencil and trace around it. And that's a good exercise for you to do, while you're sitting watching television or whatever. And it will help you tremendously when you sit down to paint again. If you just start noticing the edges of things, notice the edges and the curvatures and the space between certain things, like with birds, for example, the space between the eye and the beak, or the length of the beak, things like that. Because If you're painting a hummingbird, that beak is much different from, what is this? A mourning dove. And the head shape is different. And if you stop thinking about it like the head of a bird is a circle, and you start thinking more about the curvature of the outside edges, the lines on the outside edges of whatever it is that you're trying to draw, then tracing it is going to be your exercise to do to help you to see that. Then your paintings are going to be much better, and it's going to be much easier for you to do something with confidence than it would be to just sit down and think, you know, I'm going to draw a rose and I know that it is this swirly shape. Because when you look at a real rose or a picture of a rose, let's see if we can find one in my book here. It's not just a circular swirly shape. I may not be able to find one now that I said that out loud. Here's one here. Actually, here's a big one on the front. That is more than a circular swirly shape. So if we were to trace that, you're going to see that this is almost a triangle here on this edge. And all of these edges are, they're not straight. It's not just one big circular swirl. Can you see all the different shapes that are in there? So tracing that, let's see what happens when we do trace that. Tracing that is going to give you something much different than what you, I'm going to do it really quickly, than what you might think just in your head. And this is one area where I think a lot of us get kind of bogged down because we don't know what to do next. Or we're thinking, I want to paint a rose, but I can't just pull it out of my head because I'm not 100% sure what it looks like. But you don't have to do that. And I've been talking about originality for years here on my Facebook page, on my website, in my creative community. And I think that a lot of times most of my students get bogged down with this because they think, I've got to be original. I've got to make something that no one else has made. I've got to not look at any references. I've got to just pull things out of my brain that I think I want to make, and then it's not going to turn out well because you're not pulling from information. You're trying to pull more from abstract imagination. And if you have some things, see, look at that rose. It's not just a round swirl. If you pull from information that you have accumulated from inspiration around you, it's going to help you to make things on your own. But it doesn't have to be something that came from your brain that you've never seen somewhere else, if that makes sense. So I'm really close to having this course. It's called Beyond the Brush. I'm almost done with it, and it's planned to be released on the 19th of this month. It is going to be a 4-module course. It's going to help you a whole lot, I hope, with finding your own art style. And there are some things that I'm adding to it now that I think are going to be really helpful because they are based on questions that many of you have asked. So I'm going to be adding that information in there. And I just thought that this was one exercise that you could be doing in the meantime. If you're interested in the course and you're waiting for it to be accessible, you could do something like this in the meantime to help yourself to start building up some stored information that you can pull from when we get started with the course. And I'm going to put a link below that you can go to and sign up on the wait list and be the first to know when it is ready. And I hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you guys back here next week for our Tuesday at 2. Bye.